Hi, I'm Aki. Welcome to my avatar optimization tutorial. Avatars have become more unoptimized as time has gone on, and creators are expecting you to optimize their models yourself. This tutorial will show you how I've learned to optimize models, and more specifically, Dotty's models. This is not a perfect tutorial, and there'll be many ways to do this better. I learned how to do this all through basic trial and error and looking at other avatars and how they're set up. It usually takes me many hours of sitting at Unity to optimize an avatar, and the slower PC you have, the longer it can take. Be sure to remember to save your project frequently, as crashes can and will occur. And don't be afraid to experiment and try new things. Just always remember to create a backup beforehand. All right, so let's get started. We'll start by opening up the VRChat Creator Companion and creating a new project. It's always worth creating a new project when you're starting a new avatar. We'll call this Dotty Piggy, and we'll make it an avatar project and create the project. Now, from here, if you're using the Creator Companion, I would advise that you turn on Gesture Manager. We're going to use that. You can also add custom repos into here, but we'll download them and add them ourselves manually. All right, now that we've got our Unity project loaded, we're going to start adding in our packages before we add the model. I've got a list of all the packages in the description and downloads for them. We're going to start with VRC Fury. VRC Fury will always take a little bit of time, as the message says. Next, I'll add Dark's Avatar Optimizer. I would add the Gesture Manager, but we already added that through the VRChat Companion. I'm going to add Pumpkin's avatar tools. I'm going to add Thry's VRChat performance tools. And now we'll start adding the things we actually need for the avatar. So any extra packages required by the avatar we'll add now. So Dotty models use Poemi Pro. So I'm going to add the latest version of Poemi Pro into the project. I would always recommend using the latest version of Poemi Pro, as it does unlock and lock shaders instantly. There's no wait time. I'm going to add DPS. And if you're using a model that uses DPS and Poemi, don't forget to go into Raliv's dynamic penetration system here, into plugins, and also open this Unity package here. All right. Now that we've got all of our packages in the project, I'm going to go ahead and actually open up the avatar now. This is going to take some time. Now that the avatar is fully loaded, we're going to go ahead and open up the avatar scene with Dotty avatars. It's this one called Open Me. And the first thing I like to do is adjust the height on the avatar or avatars I'm going to work with today. I like using Pumpkin's tools for this because it will automatically adjust the viewpoint for me. I'm going to go ahead and select the model I'm going to upload. Go to Pumpkin, Avatar Tools, drag in that model, edit the scale, and change it to the height I like. And press Apply. Now, we're going to upload a full version of the avatar first. This is what you can use when you're on a one-on-one situation or with a few friends when optimization isn't a worry. It will also help us figure out what toggles and options we want to keep on the optimized version. I'm going to go ahead and upload that now. All right, so once we have the avatar fully uploaded, come into VRChat and find all the toggles you want to have, or the ones you want to keep and the ones you won't need. I usually pull out a notepad and write this down so I don't forget. Try your best to think about what outfits and toggles you will or won't need in an environment with a lot of people. We are trying to optimize for big lobbies after all. You probably don't need multiple outfits or multiple hair colors, for example. Get the avatar set up how you like so you can refer back to it in Unity. I've got my avatar set up how I want it to look like in Unity, and I've written down in a notepad what toggles I won't need anymore. Time to get back to Unity. So we're going to start by duplicating a version of the avatar that we want to optimize. For dotty models, I would suggest one of the non-DPS versions. Just going to Control D to duplicate. We're going to turn off all of the unused models. So we're going to click in all of these in the hierarchy and just untick them, just to clean everything up. And now we've just got one model to work with. I did notice that with this particular dotty model, it has scaling built in. So I didn't actually need to adjust the height of that other model. So I'm not going to worry about this one either. We're going to right click this model in the hierarchy and unpack the prefab completely. That's going to allow us to delete things and edit things on the avatar. And now what we want to do is just adjust the avatar to look how we want it to look in game. Place the specific materials you want on the Avi as you want it to look like, and start deleting outfit toggles and options you won't need. So I'm going to refer back to my little notepad I've got here and start removing things that I don't need and set up the avatar looking how I want it to. I'm going to place the specific materials I want on the avatar. I'm going to change the hair color now. I'm going to go into the main avatar asset folder, which in this case is pig. Materials. I'm going to go to hair. And I'm going to place the hair material that I used in game onto the avatar. I actually use a blonde color. And I actually change the color of that material through a hue shift. And that's how I get my hair color. Now I've turned everything off that I want to delete. And I've got my avatar looking the way I want it to look in game. So I'm going to actually start deleting some of these things now. One thing I want to clarify is not to delete anything from your project folder down below here. You may think that just deleting the extra hair materials here or textures will remove them from the avatar, but it doesn't actually remove them from the avatar slots. That's because of the FX layer that's still there, which is loading in an animation for these material swaps. The next step that we're going to do is going to be removing these animation swaps. Once all the extra fluff has been removed, some things may look a little broken. Maybe your legs or arms look a little skinny. Like if I turn this off, things might be colliding. And that is due to Blendshapes. Things aren't fitting properly or things aren't clipping. We can go into the avatar's body or particular object, open up the Blendshapes and adjust them to make the avatar look normal again. I can see here that my hair is clipping through this hat here. So this hat probably has a blend shape to adjust that, or the hair. I'm going to click on the hair and go to blend shapes over here on the right. And yes, there's a blend shape here to have that fit underneath the hat. I'm just going to have a little look around here. Make sure everything fits properly. All right, now that we have the avatar set up how we want, we can now start adjusting the FX layer and the animations. We'll start by navigating to the FX layer. I'm going to click on the model in the hierarchy over here and come over to the descriptor on the right and scroll down until I find FX. I'm going to click on that, which will navigate me straight to the FX in the project. I'm going to click on the FX. We want to first duplicate this. Messing around with FX is an easy way to break an avatar. And if you don't have a backup to go back to, it can be quite hard to fix things. I'm going to press Control D to back that up. Press F2 and rename that backup. And now I'm going to start editing the base FX. So I click on the FX and go to the animator. And this shows me all the FX layers on this avatar. This is basically the driver that's adjusting all of the changes on the model, all the toggles, hair swaps, material swaps, all that kind of stuff. We're now just going to start deleting layers. It's mostly intuitive in what you should and shouldn't delete based on the name of these layers, assuming they're named correctly. If you're unsure what a layer is doing, you can actually click on the layer and click on what's going on here. Click in the animation that's up here. That'll take you to what the actual animation is. I can click on this animation now and go to the animation tab down here. And it tells me exactly what's happening. All this animation does is turn the fishnet bottoms on and off. So if I wasn't using the fishnet in my avatar, I would just straight up delete that. But I am, so I want to keep that toggle. I would advise against removing whole drivers. Some avatars use these drivers to do multiple changes in one FX layer. For this particular model, it has a bunch of different hair options and we only want to keep one. So what I'm going to do is I know that the one I want to keep is short hair. So I'm just going to delete all of the other options. Short hair becomes the default option. I'm going to come down and do the same to the other one. I'm going to keep the reset. And I will actually make this short hair the default. You can see this orange means default. I'm going to right click this and set the layer default state. That means that now short hair will automatically load. I'm now just going to go through and delete all of the toggles that I don't need, referring back to my notepad that I have of all the things I no longer need on my avatar. Now, what we're going to do is do a little test to see if we broke anything. We're going to switch back to the scene rather than the animator. I'm going to actually go into tools up here and add the gesture manager emulator. And I'm going to go into play mode. So I'm going to press play at the top. Switch back to my scene instead of game and click on the gesture manager. This will show us the avatar as it is in game. You can now actually go in and check toggles, make sure things work as they should. I can see that everything looks good. From all of the FX I deleted, it doesn't look like anything broke. Only the things I wanted to break. So when I press tasks, no tasks show up because I deleted that. If you remove something you didn't mean to, just go back to that duplicate FX that you had, that backup that you made, and just drag that backup onto your FX layer over here, and that'll set it back to default. And then just start editing the backup. Make sure to make a new backup when you start editing again. Now we need to remove the Physbone scripts that are no longer in use and also optimize the Physbone checks that are still existing. A lot of these Dotty models have a lot of Physbone checks that aren't necessarily needed. So we're going to go back to the hierarchy over here and open up the armature. And we're just going to go hunting for anything that's a Physbone. This might be like the jiggle over here. And basically the main bad things are anything that's jiggly. If there's anything hanging off the arms or dangling around, really long strands of hair, tails, those are things we're looking to optimize. Clicking on the tail doesn't take me to the Physbone script. I've got to actually find it in the armature. What I recommend doing is actually turning on your gizmos at the top here if it's not already on. And this will show you a lot of the stuff we're looking for here. So in this example, I've gone into the hair group here and I've found a bone. You can see this white part here, that's the bone. And the green parts are all the collisions that bone can collide with through all the collision checks. This particular bone has 21 collision checks, even though the bone only goes down to just above the hip. It still has the possibility to collide with the legs and the knees. Just a lot of extra collision checks that aren't necessarily needed. So this is where you would come into these collisions here and remove some of the collision checks. In this particular case, we can actually see that this bone is for a piece of hair that we're no longer using. I'm actually going to disable this script and just disable the whole game object on the side here. I would advise against just straight up pressing delete on this. I've had a lot of issues of just pressing delete on here. Eventually it will be deleted in a further step, but I'm not going to do it here. So I'm just going to go through all of these, and I'll probably notice that most of these bones I don't actually need because they're part of the longer hair that I've turned off. And this is a very tedious process of just going through, removing the bones that are no longer in use and the scripts that are no longer in use. And then any bones that are still in use, just making sure that the collision checks that are being used by them make sense. You know, if it's a bunch of bones that are at the top of the head, it probably doesn't need to worry about colliding with your legs, for example. What you can always do to test whether turning off particular bones is breaking your avatar or not is again just pressing the play mode in Unity, going back into the scene, clicking on the model in the hierarchy. I'll turn off gizmos so I can see everything. Just moving it around. Make sure all the hair is moving. Depending on the amount of Physbones on the avatar, this can be a very tedious process. Luckily for me, this particular avatar doesn't have that many Physbones to check and remove. Now that we've removed all the excess, it's time to optimize what we have left and remove some of that VRAM usage. What we're going to do is we're going to open up the VRAM calculator. So we're going to go to Thry up the top here, down to Avatar and into VRAM. We're going to drag our avatar into the input over here, and it's going to spit out some numbers at us. Basically, what we're trying to do is reduce our texture memory here. Right now, this model has 120 megabytes of texture memory. It's not that bad, but we can definitely do a lot better. If we drop down the textures here, we can actually see exactly what textures are on here, how many megabytes or kilobytes they're taking up in space. and we can kind of fix them from there. You know, if I go to pig face, for example, I know that's the face. So you click on it, it takes you to the place in the project where that is, and then you click on that texture. On the right here is where you make your texture changes. I would always advise against using crunch compression. As far as I know, crunch is really bad, and all it does is reduce download size. It does not reduce VRAM size at all, and it adds lag when your avatar is loaded in. So for all these, I'm going to go in and actually turn off crunch compression and basically adjust the size of the texture in here. What I like to do is just try and get a front-on look of the avatar, reduce the size, press apply, and see if I notice a difference in the texture. I'm just staring at the face right now, and I'll just see if there's a difference once it's complete. You don't want to be super close when you're making these changes, because in reality, this is an optimized model. No one should be really close to you in the sort of environment that you would use an optimized model. You can keep the high quality textures for your other version that you've got uploaded. So I didn't notice a difference in that face texture, so I'm going to keep that as is. And it's just a matter of going through these slowly one by one and adjusting them. This is adjusting the bra, so I'm just going to take the top off and see if I notice a difference. I don't. I can probably keep lowering it. I did notice a little change there. You can either go through the materials just straight in the list here, or you can just go through the textures one by one, all in these folders here. But if you do it that way, there might be a couple of textures that you have adjusted that you didn't really need to because you removed them earlier. My best advice for editing textures, it's honestly just trial and error. Just go into these textures, change a texture, lower it until you can notice a difference. Just see how low you can get with it. It's going to be a slow process. It's going to be a tedious process, but it makes a big difference in the end. The other thing you may notice when you're going through these is you might notice there's some textures that shouldn't be in there. So say, for example, there's two pig faces here. There's a light skin and a dark skin one. But we removed the skin hue change in the FX animations. So why is it still loading? And that's because it's still loading on the material itself. So if we click on the body and go into the body material here, I'm going to unlock this material. If we go into the decals here, this is where Dottie does her skin color changes. We'll notice there's still decals here that are loading. Just turning off the decal does not actually remove it from the material or the model. The texture actually still loads. What you have to do is click the little circle next to the picture, type in none, and change it to none. That way it's not loaded in anywhere. And then I'm going to turn off those decals as well. Now, if I press refresh in the avatar VRAM calculator, we'll notice that there should only be one pig face loaded now. So if you're scrolling through here and you find textures that shouldn't be loaded, maybe just have a little check of the respective material. Check the decals. and see if you can turn it off. Not just turn it off, but actually remove the texture. All right, I've now gone through the tedious process of going through all the textures and just checking each one by one to see what I can get away with lowering the quality and what I can't. And I've gotten my model down to 38 megabytes of texture memory. That's pretty good. Pretty much we're right at the end now. We're ready to start uploading the model. You could, if you want to, at this point, clean up the menu toggles. You will notice if I go into play mode and I go into the gesture manager, there's going to be a lot of toggles that I've removed that do nothing now. I removed the bag on the back, and when I press pig bag, nothing happens. You can clean that up if that stuff annoys you. That's a matter of finding your menus, going into each menu and just deleting the things that you don't need anymore. Coming into each menu and just pressing delete on the things that you don't need. But it doesn't really bother me whether those are still left over personally. So I'm going to go ahead and upload this now. I'm going to click on the avatar in the hierarchy. Come down to the bottom of the descriptor on the right here, and I'm going to add a component. And I'm going to add Dark's Avatar Optimizer D4RK Avatar Optimizer. That's going to add a component down the bottom here. And this script is very powerful. We can actually see exactly here what it's going to change. So for this particular model, it's going to change these skinned meshes from 18 to 2. Materials from 33 to 23. Blend shapes cut down. All just with a click of a button. There are a few things that we want to do before we click this big create optimized copy. The first thing I always do is turn off write properties as static values. I just noticed that breaks shaders very often. So I'm just going to turn that off. I'm also going to scroll down till I find debug info at the bottom. Open that up. And just make sure there's no locked in materials, it says here. It's very important that all your materials are actually unlocked before you create the optimized copy. The easiest way to make sure they're unlocked is either come in here and one by one click on the material and unlock it. Or I can just right click the avatar in the hierarchy here, go to Thry, Materials, and Unlock All. Might look funny for a bit, but it'll fix itself slowly. That's one of the things you want to make sure that you do before you create the optimized copy, is that all the materials are unlocked. The other thing I'm going to do is convert all the normal maps to BC5. It literally says right here, BC5 compressed normal maps are the highest quality for the same VRAM size as other compression options. So it's a no-brainer. I'm just going to click that, and it's going to automatically change the way that those normal maps are being compressed. And just make them a little bit higher quality. Okay, now that that's done, I'm just going to save and click Create Optimized Copy. It's actually going to turn off our copy of this avatar in the hierarchy and create another one in its place. So it's not actually destructively removing anything from our avatar. It's creating a new copy with all the changes. Now that we've got our optimized copy, sometimes this can break your avatar. If this comes out a little broken, then it's just a matter of trial and error. This tool is very powerful, but it doesn't get things right perfectly. We can see the hair blend shape didn't come through properly, so I might just have to fix that manually. The other thing we want to check before we go further is just to make sure everything works. I'm going to go into play mode again, just to simulate as if I'm in VRChat. Go to the gesture manager and make sure toggles work. The final step now is adding VRC Fury to this optimized copy. So in the optimized copy of the avatar, we're going to go down and add another component, VRC Fury. This is another really powerful script that can fix a lot of things on Avies and optimize things. I use it for a couple of basic things. I'm going to press plus. I'm going to add the blend shape optimizer, the bounding box fix right defaults, and that's about it. There's a lot more that this can do, but I haven't delved much into it yet, to be honest. And now this avatar is ready for upload. We've got this avatar down to 180,000 polygons, 500 collision checks, 20 on materials. It's a vast difference from what it originally was. All we've got to do now is publish for Windows, and we're all good to go. Thank you for watching my tutorial. I hope it was helpful. Reach out to me with any questions if you need any help. It's a lot of trial and error, and there's going to be a lot of things that don't seem to work along the way, and sometimes you might just need a little bit of help with it.